Welcome to The Art of Growth. This is Jim Zartman. I know we've been away for a while, but we just released an episode on Monday. But Joel and I recorded these 3 episodes that are all coming out over the next couple weeks that are a snapshot into some of the things we've been learning about connection since we started this series at the beginning of the year and before the panel season about connections comes out very soon. So this is part 2 of a 3-part series where we're talking about connection with self, connection through others today, and the next one, connection with others. But for now, if you are new here, you can find out more about us at theartofgrowth.org. And most importantly, if you love the Enneagram, but you want to go deeper, you want to get into the deep end of the pool with the Enneagram, our next Enneagram certification is starting on May 6th. The small communities that form around these certifications are incredible. This is where you have it all when it comes to the Enneagram. And if you go to the homepage of theartofgrowth.org, you will see it right there. But let's go ahead and jump in with today's episode.
Okay, so this next one we're talking about is connection through others. So we talked about connection with self, and this is through others. So this is still toward, the directionality of this is still toward us. So connection through others means that in relationship with other people, you are capable of receiving the love that's coming your way. And it comes in various different ways. So I'll give you an example of a couple that I coached. She's a 2, he's a 5. And I did one session with them together. And it was very eye-opening to both. They were fairly new to it. It was, wow, this is so incredibly accurate. And so they felt seen. They loved it. Next session is...
Real quick, though, there is an element in that there was more of a connection to self that they both experienced, even though they're talking about connection to each other. Because one of the points that you had talked to me about, and we've talked through this process, is even the connection with self is not separate from our connections with others. That's right. All integrated.
That's right, yeah.
But what you were saying right there, that these 2 people, they come together to meet with you about their relationship, but because of how you structured it, because they understood their types, they were more connected with themselves through that process. Mm-hmm. And that was part of the building block to lead to what you were working with them on, connection through others, through each other.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So in that one-on-one with her, she expresses some concerns around how he is relationally, that he can go for hours without interacting with her. She qualified that with saying, I'm not a needy person. I'm very much like, I like my space. I like to be able to do my own thing. But we almost never connect throughout the day.
So when they're both at work or what? Like, was she expecting to get texts throughout the day, or what does that mean?
They're both retired and they're at home. They're spend a lot of time, doing separate things in the same space. And when I met with him, I heard from him, and it was an interesting. Yes, sure. He recognized I do need to learn some ways of better relating. And of kind of putting myself out there a little bit more. But there were things he was doing. He loved to do things that helped her, that served her. But when in talking with her, that part was sort of dismissed as like, yeah, but that's not connection.
So he would do acts of service to take care of practical needs or things like that.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, that wasn't scratching the itch.
No, and for 5s, they will come across as not overt. It won't be like, here's what I'm doing to demonstrate my affection for you, But she couldn't even see it as an act of connection. When I brought it to her attention, she could see it. But then it was still very difficult for her to receive it because her way of connection was a completely different process. That is what I mean by connection through others, is we don't often see the love that's coming our way. We don't often see the way people are trying to express, affection. And even just simple things that I'm your friend, I care about you, so I'm going to ask some questions, or I'm going to check in on you, or it can seem to some like that's not connection to me, and therefore I don't see it as an act of love.
Oh, is it not connecting to what is valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're not connecting to me, but connecting to what is valuable in connection to me. Was that a confusing sentence?
So like it's like my love language, right? So it's like I have a way of preferring to be loved. So let's say, words of affirmation are the big thing for some. And their friends, family, romantic partners are demonstrating love in the other languages of love, like acts of service or, gifts.
Sure.
It's not going to be seen as love. It's not going to be seen as an act of connection.
What is it seen as?
Well, I can speak for myself. It's seen as like, well, that's nice, thank you, but it's dismissed. It's not. It doesn't really enter in to the consciousness. It's sort of
it's not in the negative category.
No,
it's more in the neutral category.
It's a neutral feeling. It's like, oh, great,
got it.
Oh, wonderful. She made the bed this morning. Oh, wonderful. She brought me, a new shirt. Oh, wonderful. He filled my tires before my bike ride. Oh, wonderful. It's like, okay, great. Yeah. It's like I see it, but it doesn't register. It doesn't stay there very long. It's kind of, you move on. That's, I think, part of the problem is the attention isn't given to it.
Got it. Okay. So that makes sense. It's like move on. It's a quick like, oh, great.
Yeah. So that's a part where I think that the receptivity to love, so you have to perceive it before you can receive it. You have to see it. Do I see love coming my way? And then do I take that in? And that is a practice that is simple, but ridiculously difficult because our language for love or our own preferred way of being loved is still going to be there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't change. It's always going to be there. But I think that's a part of the way we learn to experience that deeper sense of connection to others, to ourselves, through other people. So, thank you is the reception of that love. Thank you. Well, what happens? We take it in. We ourselves feel more connected when we do that. It may not be our preferred love language, but it still has this effect of connecting us.
There's also the positive imagination that can be used here. When something like that happens and you recognize it, you can go through the imagination process of like, well, they were thinking about me. Like, what were they thinking? Like, how did they notice that? How did they pay attention to that? How did they decide to take that action in my benefit? And then when you go through the positive imagination, it expands the size of that small act or what would have been perceived as something as small or moved on, and you get to kind of expand the consciousness of it.
Yeah.
But as you're sharing that, it's like, yes, we want to be more receptive, but how do you feather that with sharing or asking or making bids for what you would like to receive?
Yeah, that's in the next podcast.
Oh, that's in the next podcast. Yeah. All right. That will be in the to be continued part.
You're tracking obviously by asking that question because that's where, to me, it was like, okay, that's the next logical thing we need to talk about for sure.
But for right now, we're going to stay on the receptive piece.
Because there's all kinds of ways that we don't receive. It's sure acts of service might be one of them, but think about like someone saying, hey, great job. We just did this session with a team where one of the types, it was type 1 that said, if someone's going to give me positive feedback and they say, great job, and they leave it there. Remember that?
Yeah, it's like very unsatisfying.
It's very unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, I want to know more specifically what was good, but I also want to know what can be improved on. Why are you saying that? What are you seeing in that?
Yeah.
And your response was like, well, what if that's all that they have to say? What if that's they actually did think it was a great job and they have nothing more to say about that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So which is a good pushback because I think that's a big part of the like receptivity.
Yeah.
Like that person just gave you feedback.
Yeah. And they may not see something that needed
They may
improved.
not see anything more.
They might be like, no, I'm good.
It was good enough to me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, beyond my expectations.
Yeah, it surpassed my expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
So how can I improve on that? How can I even say what you could do better than what you did there? Right. And that's something that unless you're able to take that in, again, you're sort of saying, no, it's got to come in through this particular way where it comes in with like specificity, ways it could be improved, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And we'll get to that in a third podcast on this because I think that there's definitely something there that you.
It's not an invalid request.
No, not at all.
Right.
But dismissing it because it doesn't fit, I think, keeps us from
It may not be an
connection.
invalid request, but it might not be a valid expectation.
No, it's definitely not a valid expectation. People are people.
Yeah.
And if we want them to dance to our tune, we're going to be frustrated, for most of our lives and continue to feel disconnected.
There's this song I've been listening to, this band a lot called Tiny Habits. And each of them, there's these three singers, and they sing in like this beautiful harmony. In this one song called Some Things I've Learned, in parentheses, so far. And the second verse is this girl talking about these expectations in a relationship, what I want. And she goes through this whole thing, and then what I realized and what I perceived. And the last line is, but I can't control everything. And I was like, well, that's kind of a weird line to put at this end of this relationship. But what you're describing just made the lyric make more sense to me. Because it's like, because I'm trying to control what comes towards me and the form in which it comes towards me. And that's the thing that I'm learning or realizing is not really going to work.
Yeah.
Again, you got to go with acceptance, but that can be hard to go, but I want it.
Yeah. Yeah. I still have a need. I still have a... Yeah. And again, we're going to get to that because I think it's important. But think about like all sorts of other types. Like someone says, hey, you know what? That mistake you made, not a big deal. They express a way of showing you compassion, forgiveness. What do you do with that? I have seldom observed in others or in myself a quick response to thank you. I receive that. I take that in. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep practicing that because that's a tough one for me to take in. But, thank you for showing that to me. I can count on one hand how many times I've actually done that. The majority of the time, it's more of like, I don't know what to do with it. I'm uncomfortable with it. I make a joke. I divert. I dismiss. I don't want to make them feel bad for having said that. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'll be nice to you. And thank you. Yeah, it's cool. But inwardly, I'm like, no, I can't take that in.
What are you trying to hold on to?
Control over, that feels very uncontrolled. It's terrifying to give in to the love that's being expressed to you. Very terrifying. Feels very out of control, very much like I'm being like a tractor beam. I'm being pulled into something that, I don't know what that is. I might get emotional. All I can say is uncomfortable, and that's what I try to avoid.
So this could make me feel really vulnerable where I feel exposed. Like holding on to guilt or shame is like a form of control. Sure.
There's a form of control because I know how to handle. My ego is sophisticated enough. It knows what to do with that. It's not successful.
Yeah.
Doesn't go away, but at least it's like a process by which I can work through it. So for me as a head type, I'm going to rationalize. I'm going to think through it. I might, again, go back to what we said earlier in the previous podcast. I might go to continuing to punish myself for that stupid thing that I did.
Because then it makes you feel in control of it?
I'm in control of it, sure.
If I'm punishing myself...
I'm a judge, jury, and executioner. Imagine showing up and you're not that. I'm now at the mercy of others.
That's so weird that like even forgiveness towards self can feel like a loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
That one's going to have to sit. That's
such a position of vulnerability to put yourself in like,
well, yeah.
I receive your forgiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, I want it. I want the forgiveness of, particularly if it's somebody that I've actually harmed, said something stupid didn't do something I said I was going to do. Okay, fine. I want your forgiveness. But it's almost like I want your dismissal of it. But for me to hold the truth that I did something that I knew better, but that I did something out of my, my lower side that harmed somebody, for me to sit in that pain of that I did that, and then to have someone else in that pain with me and then say, I forgive you for that. Oof, yeah, that's a toughie. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And when I practice it, when I do it, it is powerful. I mean, it does transform. It does release. It does heal. It doesn't transform immediately, but it heals, begins the healing process that then I can move toward connection. And it does really connect. Because again, if I'm remaining in that place of judge, jury, and executioner, and I'm being harsh on that part of myself, or I'm dismissing or excusing it, which is another thing I might do. I might just completely justify or excuse it, or I might repress it, forget about it, move on. I'm still in control of all of those three things, but all of those three behaviors are separating or divisive behaviors. I'm even separating the different parts of myself, or the versions of myself internally. So like we said in the first podcast on this, it's the society within, and then there's the society without. So to put myself in a place of, I am receiving your forgiveness. Say it's somebody else who I didn't harm, but I'm expressing this to them, and they demonstrate nothing but grace to me.
Yeah.
Sure, sometimes they try to help me not feel the pain of that. Like they want to, oh, no, you're fine, you're great. It's like that.
Right.
But to actually say, hey, I got you. We all do this.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like for me to take that in and say, thank you, I receive that, is not just receiving what they're saying, but it's an integration internally. It's like they're helping me reintegrate that version of me that I'm really shamed about or judgmental of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the objective outsider, we talk about this a lot in like the old coaching. One of the wonderful things about it is you have this objective outsider voice.
Yep.
And sometimes with someone who's like a close friend, if I share something where I feel like I failed, or I've hurt someone else and I'm sharing it with them, and they're really kind and forgiving and they're non-judgmental, I can absorb it a lot more than I can even from the forgiveness of the person I hurt.
Mm-hmm.
As you were sharing it, I was like physically picturing what happens to any of us when we feel vulnerable. Even if someone's demonstrating forgiveness towards us, like we feel like that defense mechanism is going to have to click in. So what happens whenever we feel vulnerable, we get exposed, we feel like we could be hurt, as creatures who want to feel safe, they lock. The body locks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the heart does too. There's like this instant, forgive the jiu-jitsu analogy, but this is something you realize when people are first starting and they don't know what to do with the position. Whether they're losing, they'll clamp up. And they just hold on. And sometimes that puts them in a worse position.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes even when they're winning, they don't want to lose it. And the best thing to do would just be to flow around it, to move, but they lock up. And so that's like locking up is like a form of an experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a form of immaturity in that action. Not in a bad way. It's something we all have to like learn and grow in. But that immediate reaction is I feel vulnerable, therefore I seize up.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like in the flow of a conversation, I can always tell if I'm feeling too vulnerable or defensive. It's like I stay on a particular thing. Like I don't want to move. Like it's like I lock up in that
on the topic?
On the topic.
Oh, interesting.
Or I lock on the topic, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's like, where's the fluidity? If I'm anxious in with other people, that I lose the fluidity of movement that's evolving because we're all together in one space, or we're journeying together somewhere, and there's a fluidity about that, right? Because it's evolving. At best, when people are together, that's what it is. It's an experience of, hey, we've never been here in this exact moment together at any time. This is like, this moment right here is unique. And so something is going to form and take shape and evolve. When I'm definitely defensive or feeling vulnerable or anxious, that, fluidity's gone. Flexibility's gone.
Yeah. I think you can feel that internally. You can see yourself when you do that lockup, that freeze up.
Yeah.
And I see that in myself. And now, like, that's a sign to actually, if I can let my body relax, then I'm more likely to actually accept what's happening in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's a really important thing is like when you feel that moment come up, that tension come up, I can't receive. I can't move. I'm like locked. Reminding your body to calm down first, then some of the other systems can be more receptive.
That's a really good point. I think for all of you who are listening, like locate that right now as you're hearing us share. Maybe you had a moment where you're like, oh yeah, I feel that of vulnerability and I don't like it when I'm in that position. It might be in your heart center, like in your chest area. For me, it happens in my belly. The moment that I feel like I'm feeling vulnerable or anxious, it's like it locks up. The lockup is right here. And that's also what I've been trying to practice is, okay, breathe into that space. Deep breath, relax that, and then see if you can be receptive. And sometimes it's faking it till I make it. Sometimes I literally go, thank you. I don't feel it.
Right.
I want to be like, no, I want to dismiss that right now. Or I want to tell you a reason why you shouldn't forgive me or why I should, like going to that place of, no, thank you. I received that. And just saying those very words as an act of lining up with my greater values, which, my greater value in that space is receptivity. Like receive the love. It's coming your way.
I'd be curious where other types feel it in their bodies. I feel it more in my jaw and then in my shoulders. Like that's where I get really tense because I know there's a lot of strength there that can kind of, it's like clenching. Mm-hmm. It's like for me, it's more of a clench. And that goes my jaws and shoots down like my shoulders and arms because there's that's where the tightness kind of comes in. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if some people get a tightness in their chest or if it's somewhere else, but can you notice it when it happens and kind of release it, relax a little bit?
Yeah. So a practical step that each of us can take is to recognize where love is coming from, how it's coming in our direction. So think about the people around you. There's a very simple practice of name the people that are in your life right now and ask yourself, how has that person demonstrated love to me? Your response, it's okay if your response is I have no idea, because that means your attention tends to be more on how you're expressing love probably. Perhaps you're frustrated with a person in your life right now that you feel like isn't showing you any love. And that may be the case. It's not like everybody's doing it. But if you ask yourself, you'll start to see it more. Just like an exercise that some therapists will do to help ground clients will be, name everything that you see in this room that's red. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that there were that many things that are red in this space, right? Well, that's what happens when we begin to look. In what ways are these people in my life trying to love me? And then the second thing to do is take that in. Practice receptivity by going, thank you. You can do this to yourself. You don't have to say it to them. But you imagine them in front of you and you saying, thank you. I receive that. I take that in. And really see if you can feel it all the way down. I try to feel it in my body first. Make my body relax and smile as if it's happy. So just do that. And that starts to relax things. And then can I take that into my heart and actually feel the warmth in my chest? They love me. And then the third thing is this is a little higher bar, but see if you can move it into the present moment when someone does something for you. To say thank you. That's all you have to do. You don't have to go weird or sappy or anything. Just thank you. Appreciate that. And whatever words you say, you can make it humorous if that's the kind of relationship you have with the person. You can make jokes. You can make, you can be lighthearted about it. But internally, see if you can take that in. We'll talk about the effect it has on other people next on the next podcast, because it does have an effect when we do that for people. It keeps the love flowing. It doesn't stymie it. We have all kinds of ways of damming up the flow that's coming our way. So that's what we're trying to learn how to do is connection is natural, but we have all kinds of reasons that our ego has developed to protect us, but it also prevents us. So now we're learning to release some of those so we can start to see how it's always moving towards us. Love is always coming in our way. Connection's always coming our direction. But see if we can open up and make that. It's like a handshake. It's like people are extending their hand to me, but I'm not extending mine. So how do I do that? So that's what we're talking about. Practice those three things and see what happens for you. See, if I do a scale of 1 to 5 before you start, on a scale of 1 to 5, in terms of really accessing connection and love from people around me, how would I rate myself? And then do that for about a week, and then rate your experience afterwards. You feel more connected? Is it more like a 3 now? Maybe it moved from a 2 to a 3, maybe from a 3 to a 4. Don't expect it to jump up from a 1 to a 5. I think that's too big of an expectation. It's the practice of it that starts to move you in a direction where that starts to happen more frequently for you. You'll feel more connected. You'll feel more of that handshake taking place. It'll become more natural to you. And over time, you'll definitely start to see it move itself upwards closer to 4 to 5. And it'll bounce back sometimes to 3 to 2. But you'll know now how to continue to keep moving it forward.
We're so glad you joined us today. And if you would like to study with us and go deeper and learn with us, find out all the ways to do that at theartofgrowth.org, including the upcoming certifications. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss anything. And you can follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth. So for now, my friends, take a good look into your own receptivity to love and see if you can welcome some more ways that those around you are trying to demonstrate care, attention, affection. Even if it's not the method you would prefer to receive in, see if you can still learn to receive from them in whatever kind of effort they demonstrate. Grace and growth, my friends.